Good morning and welcome to Bible. This is Unit 14, a brand new unit for this week and next week. We are learning about King Saul, and our theme this week is trusting God. If you remember that last week we learned about a woman named Hannah who prayed for a baby boy, and God was attentive to Hannah and heard her prayer, and she had a baby boy and named him Samuel. When Samuel went to live in the temple, someone spoke to him during the night. Do you remember who it was? Did you say God? You're right. Samuel thought it was Eli, but it wasn't. It was God who was really speaking to him. And you might be saying, we talked about this over and over again, Mrs. Guy. Well, hopefully that means that you have learned it. Samuel was attentive and listened closely to God and obeyed him. And the reason we're reviewing, you can also get on here and look at the books of the Bible. But the reason that we're reviewing is because we're talking about Samuel this week as well. Although instead of being a young boy, now he's an old man. So we're following him throughout his life. You remember that there are two parts to the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. And the New Testament is primarily where we talk about Jesus and Jesus's life and his ministry and the church. But we are still in the Old Testament. And right now we are in the book of 1 Samuel, just like we were last week. It's right here. So it goes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel. So we're in 1 Samuel. And Samuel was a prophet at this point in his life. And we'll learn how God gave the Israelites exactly what they asked for, a king. Sometimes the things we ask for are not really what we need, and sometimes God gives them to us anyways. Samuel helped God select their king. Before we get into that, we have to review, because there are 3 S names we've been talking about a lot lately. The first is Samson. Samson was from a few weeks ago. And the next one is Samuel, which he was the prophet. And then this week we're introducing Saul, which he is a king. And guess what? To make it even more confusing, once you read the New Testament, there's another Saul. Oh my goodness. But for now, just remember the difference. We're not talking about Samson right now. We're talking about Samuel the prophet and Saul the king. So hopefully that helps you when we're talking about all of these different ones. Wow. Samuel the prophet was now very old in age, and his 2 sons were helping him lead the people of Israel. But Samuel's sons were not trustworthy, and they did not obey God. Does that sound familiar? You know, it's crazy because do you remember that Samuel actually had to tell Eli that his sons were disobeying God, and now Samuel's own sons are disobeying God? There's so much disobedience. So this is Samuel as a prophet telling all of the people about God. And the Israelites told Samuel, "You are an old man. You set a good example for your sons, but they have not followed it. Now we want a king to be our leader, just like all the other nations. Choose one for us." Did you know it's really not a good idea to look around and want something just because everyone around you has it? But we do that anyways, and that's exactly what the Israelites did. The Israelites demanded a king so that they could be like everyone else. They said, "We want a king. We want a king." Can you try that at home? Try it. Ready? "We want a king." And God's people wanted a king. This was not God's first choice for the Israelites. Not at all. Now remember, we're talking about trusting God for everything. And that's actually in our memory verse this week, Proverbs 3:5. You can log on to here and watch Mrs. Malstat do the hand motions. And you can practice Proverbs 3:5a this week to remind you to trust in the Lord with all your heart. God wanted the Israelites to consider him their king and to trust him for everything. He wanted to use prophets such as Samuel to speak to the people and lead them in that way. So in a way, the people were rejecting God, which means they were saying no to him, to God as their king, when they demanded a human king. Well, we're going to just wrap up this for today and continue tomorrow, but just to think about the idea of trusting God because he knows best. And I'll see you tomorrow.